You know what I've almost never seen on Star Wars YouTube? People building their own hypothetical lightsabers. And for a fandom this large, it's weird that this concept hasn't really been done on YouTube. Yeah, I was the first to do this on YouTube. That's my ego talking. Every lightsaber is different and is supposed to be unique to the user, so I believe anyone that's an actual fan of Star Wars has their dream lightsaber. And this is just a fraction of the proof. Bite down! Bite down! In an older video where I built the most powerful lightsaber, I mentioned that there were three main components of a lightsaber: the crystal, the shape of the hilt, and the hilt's material. Some of the comments had questions on why I didn't use another material that goes by the name cortosis, which the Acolyte happened to introduce into episode 5. Well, other than the fact that the material Beskar fits better with the overall narrative of the former title, I believe that cortosis has a much better use in a video like this. And what better time to post it than post Acolyte? Let's start off with the hilt, or to be a little bit more clear, the shape of the hilt. So the hilt that I chose to use was the lightsaber pike. I do have to clarify the type of lightsaber pike, as there are two types of pikes. The first one functions essentially as a shorter, double-bladed lightsaber, which happens to be used by the Jedi Temple Guards. The second pike, which is like the pike that I've chosen as my hilt, is much more similar to like a spear. It has a really long handle, and at the end of that handle is a lightsaber blade that is about the size of like a lightsaber shoto. So the whole weapon itself is almost as tall, if not taller, than the user's body. So this gives them an insane reach advantage. Anyone that's played or watched the Old Republic is already familiar with this type of lightsaber pike used by the Knights of Zakul. The concept of like these soldiers in combination with these weapons kind of brought like a medieval vibe to Star Wars. And if that was like their goal for the game, they succeeded in it really well, because it made me like that whole concept of the lightsaber, and I really love the hilt. Definitely something I'm going to explain how beneficial it is later in the video. So with such a long handle, the hilt is always at major risk of being cut mid-fight, hence why it's made of a lightsaber resistant material called frick. But as strong as frick is, it can relatively only withstand like a couple of blows from a lightsaber, so we're going to change it. So the material that I chose for my hilt was cortosis. So for those that don't know, let me give you like a quick breakdown of the basic properties of what it is. It's lightsaber resistant. It can short circuit lightsabers, so completely cut them off for an amount of time. It can absorb blaster bolts. Now, according to Disney, it can cut out everything but the Force. This lightsaber is already looking mighty fine, so let's add the crystal. I stuck on choosing one of my favorite crystals. No, it is not this one, but it's just as good. Almost. It's the Ghostfire Crystal, the GOAT lightsaber crystal. Now, if you don't see what direction I'm going in with this lightsaber, just stick around to the end for the stats breakdown. So the Ghostfire Crystal is often described as translucent, pretty much silent, when it's inserted into the hilt, and it's also said to leave like an afterimage of both the blade and the user, effectively making the crystal extremely like pay to win if you were to find it, or you can actually just buy it. Quick little breakdown before I go into my lightsaber form variants, where the property of my lightsaber and how the forms are used with the properties of my lightsaber will make much more sense. So what I have is a long hilt, which gives me insane reach advantage, and it is susceptible to lightsaber damage. The original material for this lightsaber hilt, frick, is only a lightsaber resistant, but it doesn't have the properties that cortosis, what my material, has. It's able to shut down lightsabers, and at the end of this pike, we have a crystal that essentially functions as if a person on LSD is trying to hit a ghost. It's near invisible. It creates after images of not only the user, but of the blade, and it also is just silent. Essentially, the whole lightsaber is one big, powerful trap, and there's so many like combos and skills and different like techniques that you can use with this. It's actually insane. And I had to like limit the amount of forms that I created because it's just so like versatile and deadly. Not only do you have something that counters the main weapon that your enemy is using, you have something that literally counters their eyes, their senses, their whole perception. There's just so many things that can be done with this saber. Obviously, I took inspiration from the lightsaber forms of combat, but I didn't want to like copy and paste it one for one, so I just outlined it in my own way. But it's relatively similar enough to where I can compare and contrast it to the original forms of lightsaber combat. So the first form is 1D. This is just basic blocking stances against lightsabers and blasters using the lightsaber pike. Form 2D is essentially a fake out form. I should have called it form fake out. So it specializes in using this long hilt to bait opponents to swing on the hilt. So the point is to make people hit your hilt with their lightsaber because we want to deactivate their lightsaber. So that's what the form revolves around. Yeah, it's called 3D. So form 3D is utilizing the Ghostfire's properties in defense when someone is attacking you. So having that after image effect, that translucent effect, it's like full on mastering that to use it in defense is probably like the best defensive form. So this is just mastering the crystal and the properties of it for defensive use. So now we're getting on to the O's. Form 1O is just focusing on intentional strikes to the blade using the lightsaber pike. So kind of like what's pictured here. You're trying to use the Cortosis hilt in order to deactivate the enemy's lightsaber. It kind of looks similar to some of the prequel fights where it's like you're trying to hit the lightsaber blade. And that's where I got some of my inspiration, including this whole comic strip where Vader has a Cortosis sword and it's just like fucking everyone's lightsaber up and leaving them completely defenseless. So Form 2O has two variants. The first is Basic. Basic is just the beginner use of the Ghostfire Crystal in pike combat. So just like the basics, using the Ghostfire's properties in offense. The second one is called Pyko. It combines the Ghostfire's capabilities to be used in combat with the Force and Form 1O. And as we just discussed, Form 1O was focused on the intentional strikes to disable a lightsaber blade on offense. So again, combination of the mastery of Ghostfire's properties, the Force, and Form 1O. This is the hardest form, probably the strongest, if not second strongest form. This is Form 3O, also known as Bite Down. Bite Down! Bite Down! I had to name at least one after me. So this form fully utilizes the Ghostfire's properties in like stealthy combat, and this is why it's banned. It's primarily used for the Jedi Shadows. For those that don't know, there's a certain type of Jedi Shadows that hunt down and destroy any type of remnant of Sith artifacts, hence why it's forbidden, and only a select few use this form. Very looked down upon, by the way. Also and it has the potential to be the most powerful form if correctly used for the purpose that it was built for. So those are all my lightsaber forms for my specific lightsaber. If you were to add any form to my lightsaber form, give me some details on them. What would it look like? What would you name it after? What is like the properties and the details of it? Would it be hard to master? Is it easy? Is it a beginner thing? Is it a Jedi Knight thing? Is it only limited to certain people in the Jedi Order? Is it forbidden? Is it lost to time? I'm curious to see what some of you guys would come up with.